Hey guys, it's Barrett with the Gimme Camper, and we're here to talk about the not so glamorous points of buying a new camper in today's day and time. In my case, I have a 2019 Keystone Cougar 29 RKS, which I have had some decent issues out of. Now, I don't think that these issues are going to be confined to this camper. I'm going to just more use this for a list of things that you may want to check on your camper, in just areas to help you decide if you're looking for a camper, things that you might want to look at specifically. I just wanted to say real quick that this video is sponsored by Shelburne RV in Cleveland, Tennessee. I'm going to put their phone number right here. If you're in the greater Chattanooga area and you need somebody to help you with your RV, you need to give those guys a call. I've seen them take care of their customers. I've seen them take care of me. They're not in the business to take advantage of people, and they're here to help you. Now, if you're out of the area and you're looking for somebody, I want you to keep in mind places like Shelburne RV, these local mom and pops places, these local techs. They're great guys. In my opinion, they take care of their customers better than a lot of the big box brands. I'm also going to use this opportunity to tell you the things that I have fixed dealing with these issues and the plans that I have in the future videos in order to resolve some of these issues. I want to start by saying that I know that a lot of issues camper manufacturers have today is to try to keep costs down, because let's face it, like a lot of the trucks that they have pulling these campers cost $60,000 or $70,000, and a lot of these fifth wheels and new campers are going to be significantly less than that. And you're trying to keep costs down, and so you cut around a few corners, and some of them are justified and some of them may not be, but it's pretty much the same with all camper manufacturers these days. And the reason so that every camper out there doesn't cost $100,000. And so it's the greatest good for the greatest benefit. I understand that part of the puzzle. There are some things that I wish were completely different, and we're going to get into those now. The number one thing that I'm unsatisfied with my camper, after having a camper with water damage on it previously, is the fact that there were water leaks in it. Less than a year and a half old, I had water leaks. Now, it wasn't even in the roof because I'd already replaced the roof, and we'll get into that in a minute. So I went down to my friend Steve Shelburne at Shelburne RV here in Cleveland, Tennessee, and I went to test out a piece of equipment with a seal tech that he has that makes the inside of the camper positive pressure, and that positive pressure allows you to find any leaks that are in the camper. So I'm going to link my video up here to the video that I did with Steve in using the seal tech, where we found the 4 leaks in the sides of the camper. I would hope that this is a process that they use when they build a camper, because it's so easy and effortless. And if they don't use it when they build it, you would hope that they would do something like this at the dealership before they sell it. Now, I'm not going to say that there is no possibility that they did this before I bought it, but I really don't think so, given that it was only a year and a half old. My second major issue that I have with the camper is the roof. And you know, I got this because I had the water damage in my other camper, which was partially from a roof, and it was also partially because somebody didn't winterize it, and the water froze in the water heater tank and busted the top of the tank off and let who knows how much water in the camper. But because of that, I was so petrified. By the time I got done rebuilding that thing and got so over it, I wanted a brand new camper so I wouldn't have to worry about somebody else messing something up again. So I went the brand new route, and I was feeling uneasy after I was on top of the roof last summer, because I was putting in the solar panels, and just it being hot and walking up there, I think that TPO was probably about 1/16 of an inch thick, and you could see it stretching under my feet. And I became paranoid that just walking on it was going to cause it to have some pinhole somewhere that I didn't see, and I wasn't going to know about it until I had all this major issue. And I'm so petrified at having water issues that I decided to replace the roof. That's right, I replaced the roof on my brand new camper. Now, the roof that I went with was RV Armor, and when I got it, every review that I heard was spectacular. I've had great service from them, and I'm going to highly recommend them. They come out to your place wherever you are, and they put this roofing system on. It is a paintable system, and it's great. They give you a lifetime warranty. Yes, I said lifetime warranty. That is a transferable lifetime warranty, so that you will never have to worry about the roof again. I have a whole video on this roof, and I'm going to link that up here too. Now, since putting it on, like I say, I've had nothing but positive things to say about this, but I have run across one person in internet land that said they had a bad experience with it. So, I mean, everybody's going to have a bad experience with something at some point in time, but I still think that one bad review out of the hundreds that I've read and listened to and watched on YouTube is pretty good odds. All right, so the next thing on my list is going to be a pretty obvious thing that you would think. Now, looking at my fifth wheel, I always thought it had plenty of clearance above the tires, but if you can get down under there, under the slides, there's not a whole lot of clearance. It's like 1.5 inches, 2 inches on a normal model based like this. Now, I did have a little bit of lift added by the manufacturer because I had some warranty work done because I had a suspension failure, which may or may not have been an issue that I should add in here, but it's not the whole issue that I'm going to talk about right now. The biggest issue that I'm going to talk about, because the biggest problem that I had from all that, is somebody decided to run the wires from the wiring harness directly above the tires of the camper with 1.5 inches, 2 inches of clearance. Now, to me, that doesn't sound like a smart idea. And so I was really wanting them to do something different about that. I took it and they did the warranty work. I had that done in Camping World in Chattanooga. After they were able to find my camper, because they lost it when I went to pick it up, which they then told me that it was because they were looking for a travel trailer, not a fifth wheel. But after they did that, they did say the manufacturer okayed to put a little different shackle on there, which give it about 1 more inch of lift. But they just taped those wires back up to where they were, right under the slide, which is right over the tire. Now, by using the tape, my next big trip that I took was from Tennessee to Michigan, and I just got down and checked on that a few times, and I was very concerned that the tape was dropping back down. So I'm going to show you a video here that I took at that moment, and basically those wires were drooping down so much that I couldn't fit my hand hardly between those wires and the tires again. And so I was afraid that I was going to end up with something looking like this, which is what it looked like before. And so I was stopping about every 60, 80 miles and putting new pieces of tape on there because this tape kept falling down. And I was extremely worried that this was going to cause some major damage to my camper. So I stopped in at the dealership in Michigan where I actually bought the camper, and they temporarily fixed it by using better tape and taping it up out of the way. And it didn't fall back down. But when I got back home, I did take it to the dealership here in the Camping World that I was using, because I mainly thought that I was having some electrical issues, but I got all that figured out. But I wanted them to test the wiring there. And I explained that I was very unhappy that the wires were still above the tires, and they said that, you know, that's the way Keystone makes it, and that's factory, and that's the way it should be. And I told them it just didn't make any sense. I do have a group on Facebook that are just campers of this design. And one of my friends had said that they moved the wiring to the frame of the camper. And so my question to him was like, well, what all wires were there? Because I thought, you know, you have to splice them and you have to get in there. And he said, no, I don't know what's in there because I didn't have to do anything to it. It had enough slack where I could just move it over and mount it to the frame. So that just brings the question, like, why would we not do that to start with? If we have enough wire slack there, and we don't even have to cut into anything, all we have to do is move it over and screw it to the frame, then why is that not standard production? So they did do that for me at Camping World, and I've not had any issues out of that since. I'm going to show you here what it looks like now. This wire used to run right up through here. You can see where the tape is, where they had it taped before. That has enough slack to move it over to the frame, where it's not directly over the tire with such little clearance. There's only normally about 1.5 inches, 2 inches of clearance here. The next problem that I've had is the furnace. Now, my big gripe with the furnace isn't even about it working or not working. It's about getting to it. So what we had to do, I made a whole video on how to access the furnace because my cell switch messed up. And what I wish I'd seen then, because my cell switch messed up again last night, is apparently there's a fix where you got to trim a little piece of plastic off of the cell switch because the newer ones don't have as much plastic there. And they tend to, that one piece of plastic being a little bit longer apparently keeps it from working normally and can get in the way. And so I learned that in a Facebook group that I'm in called Keystone Cougar Owners. They have that posted in their files there. So if you have a Keystone and you're having issues with that, you might want to look into something like that, because I'm going to have to tear this thing apart and look at it again. But my big gripe about it isn't the fact that it doesn't work or anything like that. It's that you can't get to it. There's only an exhaust vent there. So I went out there to take a look at it, take a look at that cell switch, and you couldn't get to it. Now, it obviously is something that you shouldn't have to access that much, but it's just a pain to get to without an access door there. The fifth thing that gets on my nerves about this camper, and most new campers out there, are the Roman blinds. Now, these things are hard to adjust. I do have a video on adjusting them. You know, they come with these little plastic knobs that screw into the wall to hold tension. But the issue, which is going to be one of our upcoming issues about RVs, is that the walls are thin. And so they don't hold screws that well, especially if there's tension on them. And with these, they're like designed in order so you can like wrap the string around this plastic button to tighten it up a little bit. But it doesn't really work that way because you can't get enough tension on the screw to hold it where it doesn't spin. And so if you wrap the string just around that plastic piece, it just spins in circles. And so you got to adjust this whole screw, take the screw out, adjust the string there in order to get it tight. Now, this is one of the things that I asked Camping World to deal with when I took it in for warranty work, and they did fix it, but it's messed up again. And I will say that the two that I have the biggest issue with are the two that are in the one that's in the hallway by the bathroom and one that's in the bedroom. And the reason I think I have more issues out of that is because that's where my dogs can get to, and they try to nose up at the blinds and open them up. But still, I wouldn't think that this would be that big of an issue. Now, there are a couple of fixes for that. The fix that I'm going to choose is I'm going to replace the blinds with something better. I want a day-night shade, that kind of thing. If you have a recommendation on that, please leave it in the comments, because I'm really looking for something, hopefully not too horribly expensive, but a good quality product that'll work in that area to keep some of the heat out and block the light out whenever I don't want it in. Now, another fix that you could do if you just wanted to fix it, because I even made a new hole with one of them. I was like, well, let's just try this. And that only lasted like a month or two and it fell out again. So something that you could do to fix it, as long as the insulation in there is like styrofoam, you could drill a bigger hole, which isn't going to look as nice, but you could drill a bigger hole and you could fill that with like some epoxy putty or something like that. And then it would have more to bite to, because you would have a good connection with all that, the epoxy everywhere that it was holding it in there, and then put the screw into that. I think that that would possibly work, but I don't want to go making bigger holes in my walls. My next thing that I didn't find horribly great in the camper was the wardrobe slide. Now, it looks great whenever you first get it and you go in there, and it's 3 drawers. You know, you got 3 doors, and behind each door is a drawer in the bottom with a shelf and a hanging space all the way across the top. But the problem is that hanging space isn't low enough, so you don't have enough area in there to hang your clothes up. So if you try hanging clothes up in there, because I used to try it too, but they all fall off whenever you're transporting usually. But the issue with that is the shelf's so high that they drag along the bottom, and it doesn't allow the weight of the shirts and stuff to hold them on the hanger as well. So a lot of people have trouble with this. Now, one of the fixes that I've seen, which is what I plan on doing, is taking those drawers out, taking those shelves out, and putting all of those drawers in that center section. And by doing that and making them stack vertically instead of horizontally, it opens up the 2 sides if you take that shelf out, in order to have a full-size hanging closet there, which sounds like it's going to be a great idea. And it doesn't sound like that hard of a project, But you guys know me, and very rarely do I ever do anything that's an easy project that ends up being an easy project. My next thing that I'm unsatisfied with is probably a little trivial, I'll give you that. But whenever I was watching YouTube videos and looking at pictures and stuff of these new Cougars, one of the things that I really thought was nice was the bathroom sink. Just because it had this round thing of wood coming out in front of the bathroom sink, just to give it a little bit of like a modern elegance. But that modern elegance is nothing more than a piece of Luan that's curved, that's screwed in on both sides. But I don't know about your case, but in my case, the screws have come loose on one side, and it's not been round the whole time that I've had it. It's been more of an elliptical shape. I have been planning on getting in there and adding some more screws to see if that kind of makes it hold its shape better. But there has to be a better way to do that. And the 8th thing that I was disappointed in was when I mounted a TV in my bedroom. Now, I mounted the TV in there, I just used a regular TV mount. I didn't use one of the RV ones that latch in place or anything like that. But the issue that I had was there's a sticker that basically says mount TV here. But if you touch it, like that whole wall, it's just Luan and it just moves back and forth. There's no support back there. I mean, I'm assuming that deep in the wall, there's a support there somewhere, but I wasn't comfortable trying to hang a TV in a piece of Luan that you could push back a ½ an inch with your hand. And so what I did, I just simply went over to the stud that was to the right. In the TV hanger that I used, I did get some shorter lag bolts because I watched some videos of some people mounting TVs in the bedroom that ended up the screws coming through in the shower or the bathroom or something like that. That made me very nervous, but it all worked out fine. So that, in my opinion, is an easy fix if you just mount it over on the stud. Another issue that I've had is with the cabinets in my camper. Now, with a lot of these cabinets, I'm gonna see, you know, this is a double-edged sword because it's talking about that whole, first of all, you have to have something that's lightweight, because this is a lightweight camper. You have to have something that's easy to work with, and you have to have something that is as durable as you can make it. And I understand all that's a delicate balance, but oh, the cabinets. So I got several different issues with the cabinets. They are very pretty, and I'll give them props on that one. You know, first thing, which is a mild thing, I do like having a lot of cabinet space, but the cabinet space that we have, a lot of it's like huge cabinet space, which is great, but it's like huge and wonky. So like, I don't really know what you could do in those situations. If you could add more shelves in there, some people do that, especially like over there in the corner above my stove area. It's got real deep cavern back there, which, you know, that's kind of our throw everything cabinet anyway. And that is something that's really minor, but I'm just saying, you know, it's just kind of awkward with the really big cabinets. Now, if I had really small cabinets, I'd be more mad. So like I say, we're starting with the little stuff. The second thing would be a quality control issue. So when I first picked my camper up, I had an issue because I went to do my walkthrough and they said something about a drawer messing up. I asked them what drawer it was, and it was the one that's right behind my kitchen sink, and it's right beside the slide. And so they pinched it in the slide and it broke off. Well, I went to my dad's house from the dealership, and the first time I put the slide out, that drawer opened back up because I didn't learn the lesson the first time, I guess. And you know, you're all nervous when you first buy something and you're trying to be careful anyway. I didn't look at the drawer before I opened the slides. And so due to that, it actually pinched the drawer. I had to rebuild it. I had to replace the trim because it pulled the trim loose on the slide, which that problem wasn't too bad, but it broke the trim across the bottom of the slide, which I had to stain a piece of wood and put there. And so why did I have to do all of this? Mainly it's because when I was looking around, a lot of those mechanisms that they install in the cabinets to keep the doors and the drawers closed, they didn't even line up. So the way that a lot of those work is you have like a peg that's on the door and it squeezes between two other pegs that are part of the cabinet, and that's what keeps the door closed. But a lot of these were like where it would be on the outside where it wasn't even touching the peg, or it would kind of brush up against the side of it and it would push it to the outside. And so because of that, I had to go through and I had to rehang all of those, which wasn't too bad of an idea, but I just wish I would have saw it before I damaged anything. I have had some of the cabinet wood starting to peel off. That kind of makes me nervous as far as the longevity. Just the main things that I've seen is I have a door in my bedroom where the very corner of it's got a chip out of it. And I had one cabinet door that's next to my fireplace that just broke in transport. It was closed and just the shaking broke it. I actually used a Craig jig to put it back together, but you could see some splintering in some small places that I didn't like. And when I had the warranty work done at Camping World, they did replace that under the warranty. But then I had a dog eat another one of my cabinet doors, which obviously wasn't the fault of the manufacturer, but I ordered another door, which I still hadn't put in, but the door was only $40. Now, on one hand, I'm really happy that the door was cheap and only $40, but on the other hand, I'm kind of apprehensive because the door was cheap and only $40. You know, like I say, I know that it's a hit or miss with this balance thing, but my big worry is what happens when Keystone doesn't make these doors anymore. If you have any issues, am I going to have to make my own cabinet doors like I did at my house? I mean, I can do it, so it wouldn't be a huge issue, but I really wouldn't want to make every cabinet door just so that they matched. I do have one piece of crown molding in my living room that's kind of separated and not attached real well. It's a small area. It's like 6 or 8 inches. It's not even enough for me to ever like really look at it. So I got up there to look at that the other day just to see what it would take to put that back in the area. And then I noticed that there's a transition in that trim that's right past that area. In that transition, it looks like a lot of the laminate surface of that trim is, you can feel it's come loose from the trim. And I know there's not a water leak there, so I'm not worried about that, but it makes me worried that that piece of trim is going to mess up sooner rather than later, because if you touch it, you can feel it move, you know, because like kind of like the paint's loose, but it's not paint, it's laminate, I think. But you understand what I'm coming from. All right, then I only have 2 more issues, and then I'll be done whining. So my next issue is going to be about the living room vent. Now the living room vent in my 1/2-ton fifth wheel is so high that I can't reach it, and I'm 6'4", so that should tell you something. I've got a stool before and opened it up or whatever. Well, last summer when I was doing all my projects, I decided to put a Max Air fan in, which the Max Air fan, I'm loving it. It's working great. I like it because we can use it for a ceiling fan to circulate air, and everything works fine with that. I have one in the living room, I have one in the bathroom. But the problem was installing it. So I was very disheartened whenever I learned that my camper that's pre-wired for a second air conditioner up in the bedroom wasn't pre-wired with a 12-volt wire that's constant in the vent area. And for me, I just don't understand why camper manufacturers don't do that. I mean, wire's not the cheapest in the world, but it's one of those things that if you're installing a 12-volt system, I don't know why we don't have more access to that stuff. So like, especially if you're like USB chargers, like there should be USB chargers in like everything now, like 2 in every room. They're cheap, they're easy. You know, some people say that they don't really want them to put them in, they wouldn't be the fast, nice chargers. But if it's already in the wall and the wire's there, you still know it's there and you have access to it. And so it's a lot easier to run and install a new charger if you want to upgrade it, if it's already there, than when it's not. Because I would say on most of these campers, like 20, 30 bucks is all it's going to take in the price difference to put USB chargers in there. And I just don't understand why we don't do that more. But back to my other subject of the vent fan. In order to get my power to the vent, I tried fishing a wire that I have the racetrack air AC vents that go along the camper, and it just makes a big circle. And you can see them whenever you pull the vent shroud off. And so I tried to use a fish to fish a wire along the side of that AC, but I wasn't able to do that. And so the option that I chose was to run the power wire over the top of the roof, which I really wasn't happy with, but it's the way I decided to go. Now thinking back on that, I would have made a little hole in the AC vent and run it through the vent, but then you would have to patch all that up. But that's the way that I would do it looking back. But I just don't understand why we don't have power wire at the main vent in the living room. I don't understand it. I mean, I'm not even asking that you install a fan in the living room, but just a power wire, just a 12-volt wire. Please, next time, do that. All right, and the last thing that's probably one of the worst things on any new camper these days are the thin walls. And that's not even a new thing. That's always been a thing with campers because you have to have them lightweight, and I understand that. But you attach all this stuff to these thin walls, and it, just like the blinds, it doesn't have any holding power. So my awnings already come loose. We had to fix that. We had to use some pop rivets because I couldn't even get screws to pull it back down and hold it tight. And along with that, my step handrail popped loose like a couple of weeks ago. I still got to get around to tightening that back down and figuring out how I'm going to do that and sealing the top of that. But a lot of stuff like that where it just doesn't hold. Oh, my shower head, the shower head holder in the shower, it's even came loose and it's just kind of hanging there because there's not enough wall there for this stuff for the screws to bite on. And it's an issue. And so if you have a way to use for an anchor that's better than the screw and this kind of stuff, let me know. I know that I've tried in my old camper to use like some actual anchors and stuff. And I actually bought an anchor system to use in the awning when it pulled loose, but I didn't have any luck with that either. So what are ways that you use to anchor things down if you need to anchor things in the Luan? So guys, I know it sounds like I'm griping a lot, but really these are things that I'm unhappy about, and it's just issues that I've had. And I don't want you to use this for a reason to say, oh, all campers suck, blah, blah, blah. I more want you to use this if you're buying a new camper or you're looking at a new camper or you have a new camper and you just want to look around and kind of open your eyes and see what's there. Because the sooner that you find out some of this stuff and you figure out what's going on, the easier it is for you, especially the water leaks. You cannot have a water leak in your camper and expect it to be worth something in a couple of years because that stuff's just going to rot out really quick. Now, my next video that I'm going to have about this subject anyway is going to be things that I love about my camper. So be sure to stay tuned for that. A lot of people, I posted this in Facebook, and a lot of people are like, oh, you just want to complain because they didn't read the fine print there. And it's not all complaints, but they are legitimate issues that I have, and I don't hate the fact that I bought the camper. I don't regret it, but these are issues that I had, and I hope that my issues, working through them, can help some of you guys. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
Do not forget to hit that subscribe button.